Hello and welcome to today's webinar, Membership is Dead. My name is Sarah Gonzalez and I will be your facilitator for today's event. Today's webinar will look at the major trends affecting associations and the actions associations need in order to adapt. Okay, so what I'd like to do now is welcome our presenter for today, the Managing Director of Strategic Membership Solutions, Belinda Moore. How are you today, Belinda?
Hi, I'm fantastic, thank you.
Excellent. So I'll let you get started.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. And I've just put on a little brief video just for a moment to say hi for those of you who can see me. So you can put at least a face to the name and the voice that you're hearing. But now I'm going to disappear again so that you can focus on the screen and the slides that are in front of you. Now, for those of you who don't know me, I've been involved in membership for quite some time. And back in the early 90s when I first started out, there wasn't the volume of information available that we have these days. In fact, I'd say in the last sort of 6 or so years, we've probably seen more research and study come into the membership field than we've seen in the previous 100 years before that. And it's been fantastic because, well, I'm a bit of a membership geek and I devour that stuff with quite a lot of gusto. But one of the things that I've noticed in analysing all of this research is that we're entering a period of massive change. There's more change going through in associations now than we've seen ever before. And it's a combination of cultural, demographic and generational forces that are colliding to forever change the landscape that we operate in. And I know that a lot of people look at this with a bit of fear, but what I'd like to say to you today is this is a massive opportunity that we can reach out and grasp. You just need to know the change that you've got to make to be able to be successful in this new environment. Those that don't adapt are going to fade away. They're not going to go out with a bang. They'll just fade into obscurity. But those that do adapt have the opportunity to make a really powerful difference to the lives of their members and their association as well. So what I'd like to do today is to outline some of the changes that are coming up, as well as some of the solutions that we can apply to deal with those. At the end of today's presentation, I'm going to provide you with a link where you can download free of charge a copy of my book, as well as a copy of the white paper, which means that hopefully you won't have to take copious notes today because all of the information that we're going to go through today is contained in those documents. I'm also happy to stay online to answer any questions that you might have, because I realise with this many people attending, it's very hard to ask and answer questions as we go along, although I will pause occasionally if there's anything particularly pertinent people want to ask. But first of all, I'd like to find out from yourselves what's going on in your experience, because when we're looking at identifying associations who are experiencing challenges as a result of this changed membership landscape, there's a couple of common features that we see coming through. And Sarah, I might just throw it to you to open up the poll.
Yeah, great. So we're going to launch this poll now. And the question is your association experiencing any of the following risk factors? So if you can select as many as you like, you've got 7 responses there. So maybe 1 may apply to you, maybe all 7 may apply to you. And do you usually see any common responses come through with something like this, Belinda?
We normally see the younger members joining and then leaving after a year or 2 is always the biggest, and getting people to the events. And I'm not surprised to see the alignment between those two, because for people who are looking to grow their membership very powerfully, the link between membership and events is a very strong one that's been proven through research over and over again. I'm not surprised at all to see this scope that's coming through today, but it looks like quite a few of us are experiencing multiple issues.
Great. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to close this poll now. There we go. And as we could see back there, we did have the number 1 and also number 3 come down as the main ones.
And one of the things that I hope this reassures you all is that you're not alone in facing these issues. Associations of all shapes and sizes are experiencing these. So let's jump in and learn a bit about why this is happening. Baby boomers. Baby boomers, when you look at all of the research, are the most likely to join an association, the most likely to renew, and the most likely to get proactively involved in making changes and volunteering within their associations. Now, what's happened is from 2011, these people started to retire. These people who are responsible for the growth of the association market as we know it today are entering into retirement. And by 2029, our entire association staff and our entire association membership is going to be made up predominantly of Generation X, Generation Y, and younger. So those associations who are adapting to become generationally diverse are positioning themselves to manage the exodus of this critical group. And this is a particular issue because baby boomers' attitudes towards membership are vastly different from what we're seeing from baby boomers. One of the things that may mitigate this somewhat, it's not going to prevent it happening, but it might slow it down just a touch, is that when baby boomers look at the things they want in their lives, so when I retire, I want a trip around Australia or a trip around Italy or to travel around New Zealand in a camper van, they see these things not as needs, they see these things not as wants, but as needs. And so what we're seeing is the intention of a number of baby boomers to slightly extend their retirement date, so from 65 to 68 or 70. So that may soften the impact a little, but it's not going to stop the fact that by 2029, the landscape that we operate in is going to be vastly different. Now, I'll talk more about the predispositions of Gen Y and X to membership shortly, but I wanted to just go through one of the other implications of this exodus. If you take a look at the physical numbers of people, there are more boomers than there are Generation X. Now, what this means, as the boomers start to leave their roles and head off into retirement, it's going to create a staffing vacuum. This means that we're simply not going to have enough staff and volunteers experienced and skilled enough to fill the positions that are there. So for your association, it means you need to be acting now to engage people in and give them clear pathways where they can then step into these vacancies as they occur. One of the challenges that you have is even though Gen Y, for example, are challenging for a lot of people, but I think they're a massive opportunity because they're the most educated, socially aware, technologically integrated generation we've ever seen. So they've got an enormous amount of advantage that they can provide to associations, but unfortunately many still lack the experience, skills and networks that they need in order to succeed in a senior role. So what we need to do now is we need to be able to find ways to identify and fast-track young talent through our associations, provide them with the skills and tools to be successful. Because Gen Y, because of the different upbringing that they've had, will truly appreciate you for this. And I know a lot of people say they don't have loyalty, but I think a lot of people don't understand how Gen Y are quite different. They don't respond to the management techniques that we saw in the past, which were very authoritarian. And Gen Y, as we all know, they come in going, I'm amazing, and I want to be CEO tomorrow. And the way to respond to that, if you really want to engage with Gen Y, is to go back and say, yes, you are amazing, and because of that, we expect amazing things from you. And here, let us give you the tools and the experiences to be able to realize that potential that you have. So it's about actively encouraging, nurturing, and involving those future leaders now. But one of the things that stops this, and one of the reasons why so many associations have challenges actually engaging with this younger generation, is this. Because the baby boomers are so wonderful, they're so actively involved in their associations, what we've seen is that the products, the services, the communication channels, and the decision-making structures within most associations are entirely geared towards this group. And this means that associations are concentrating all of their financial and time resources towards the baby boomer-orientated activities at the expense of investing resources into the products and services that young people see as most valuable. In fact, the decision to join research done by the American Society of Association Executives quite authoritatively showed that senior executives tend to invest more in the programs that they see as important rather than the ones that younger people do. And just an aside there, for those of you who haven't read the decision to join research and you're in membership, you need to get a copy and you need to read it. It is a critical piece of research, and I'd be very happy to send a summary document that I've written along to anybody who might want a copy who hasn't seen it, because that piece of research was initially done in 2007, and they surveyed 16,994 people, which is a huge project, and they surveyed three distinct groups. They surveyed people who are currently members of professional associations, people who were previously members of professional associations, but then they got a group that had never before been surveyed, which was what made it so special. They got the group of people who had chosen never to join their professional association and were able to understand why. So I'm going to be referring to that research a little bit more as we go through, and I know some of you will be thinking, 2007, it's probably old. They redid the research last year. In fact, I flew to the States just recently to catch up with people who'd done that research to find out what's changed, because, well, I was terribly excited. And you know what? It was funny. I sat down with the bloke who did the research, and he said, we can't do a report because nothing's changed. The variations to the data are not significant enough to justify the cost of reproducing it. So you can rely on what's written on that report. And just from the research that's been done in Australia, looking at whether in Australia and New Zealand, the same trends are occurring, everything's reinforced what's come through there. Now, just to give you an example of this, I speak very often. I spend half my life presenting to boards and staff on exactly the information you're hearing at the moment. And I had the opportunity to speak to one of the local Rotary clubs. Now, I talk to a lot of Rotary clubs and all are different. And this one particular club that I got called in to speak to, they had their meeting every Monday night. And for those of you who aren't familiar with Rotary, when you become a member, you commit to meeting once a week. And if you don't make that meeting, you make a make-up meeting at another Rotary club. So anyhow, what happened was I turned up at this dingy old RSL club, walked down this tiny little hallway into what I assumed it was a cupboard. Turns out it was just a very small evening meal room. It was very, very smoky because someone hadn't informed them that you weren't allowed to smoke indoors anymore. And then I was welcomed there. There was about, I think off the top of my head, there was about 7 or 8 people there, and the youngest would have been about 65 to 70. And I sat down for possibly the worst meal of shoe leather that I'd ever had the misfortune to eat. We sang God Save the Queen, which is surprising because Australia's national anthem isn't God Save the Queen any longer. We said grace. The British and the Australian flag were up the front. And over dinner, we had a very scintillating discussion about hip joints, sore knees, and the latest thing going on with false teeth. And it was at the end of that they invited me up to the front of the room to speak on tonight's topic, the one they were all so interested in, which was, why aren't younger people joining our club? Now, I actually sat there and we talked for quite some time as I explained to them in a lot of detail why perhaps they were having some difficulty attracting the younger members, and by younger members I do mean actually boomers. And at the end of that discussion, the group were unanimously agreed on the fact that they didn't really want younger members anyway. So I'm going to assume that the majority of you aren't along those lines, but it does mean if you want to make sure that you're appealing to the younger people, you need to get their eyes, get someone with fresh eyes to come in and experience your association from the perspective of a younger member and to tell you where are those things happening where you are unintentionally, most likely, gearing yourself for the boomers and perhaps excluding those younger people and therefore their desire to engage with you. Because when it comes down to it, when you're looking at membership, and I put here perception is more important than reality, but you know what? Perception is reality. You may have the best products and services in the world, but if people don't believe that they're the best products and services in the world, then you're not going to get the take-up. And perceptions, they're a really important thing because no matter what you do, every single time that someone interacts with your organization, either consciously or subconsciously, they're forming an opinion about you. There's nothing that you can do to stop that process, but you can choose the perceptions that you want to convey. Now, this is particularly relevant when targeting younger members because baby boomers, when they're looking at membership and they see an association that's in their field or profession or industry, whatever it might be, and they think that needs a little bit of work, they're very much inclined to join, become part of the group and make those changes internally. Gen Y, on the other hand, are what we call aspirational. They want to align and join organizations that they see as successful. Now, Now, if your association isn't positioning yourself like that, you may be unintentionally alienating these younger members, because what will happen is if they don't see you as someone that they're perceiving as successful, they will look to see what the alternatives are. And often, if they can't find a good alternative, they'll start their own organisation. But let me give you an illustration here of perception. I travel to the US conferences a lot, and I had the opportunity about 4 or 5 years ago to sit next to a gentleman at a dinner, and he related a story to me which really brought this home. He said they're from an association which does advocacy. Now, at that time, the percentage of the membership fee that was spent on advocacy wasn't tax deductible, so members were very aware of what portion of their membership fee was going towards advocacy services. So what happened? And so, say, for example, the membership fee is $100, so $30 gets spent on advocacy, only $70 is tax deductible. Now, this association was suffering from declining membership, and as well, when they did the research into their members were saying that they didn't value the advocacy and they wanted the association to cease. Now, this was a massive issue. The association could have gone, all hail the members have spoken, and ceased the advocacy work. Thankfully, they did the opposite, which was to go, holy crap, we've made a huge mistake. We need to more effectively communicate the value of the advocacy work we're doing. And so what they did was this. They picked an issue and advocated on it. Thankfully, they were actually able to work out pretty much what each member had saved to the nearest couple of dollars. About a month before the renewals were due to go out, they sent a letter to every single member. And the letter said this: Dear name, no one uses dear member anymore, due to our advocacy work on this particular issue, the dummy check attached to this letter represents the amount of money that is as good as back in your pocket. We thought you'd like to know. Warm regards, the Executive Director. When people flipped over that letter, the dummy check in almost every case was far more than their membership fee. So think about this. Before someone would open that letter, the likelihood is that people would not have been wanting to renew their membership. And yet, 30, 40 seconds later, their perception has been entirely turned around. And this is why, as an association, it's critical that you manage your perceptions and how people relate to you. And it's very easy to get it wrong. There was one association here in Australia which had an accountant start. And this accountant, during the course of his time with that association, never actually spoke to any association member. But he did read the Constitution. He was a bit like the stereotype of the typical accountant. And in the Constitution, it clearly stated that a member must give written notice 3 months prior to renewals going out if they do not wish to renew the membership. So do you know what he did? Every single renewal notice, he put on a yellow sticky note that said, please pay in 14 days or legal action will be taken. Now, I heard about this because the association called and asked if there was anything I could do to help them. And my response was really probably not right now, because their membership dived, because on principle people weren't going to renew because the perception was that the association was exceptionally rude, amongst other things. So think about how your communications look, how quickly you respond to emails, how your staff talk. And it doesn't mean that it's, say, for example, a suit is always going to be appropriate. If you're going onto a building site, you've got to think about how do you match dress so that people are comfortable with you. Anyway, I could talk on this topic all day, so I want to just go on to what the most important perception is. And that's that you're valuable. Younger members in particular are constantly reviewing the value proposition for the associations and organisations that they are engaged with. And the challenge is that the most important value of your membership is, in most cases, intangible. And I've actually put this in writing because it is so important. Membership is an investment, not a donation. When someone joins you, they're not giving you the money, they're expecting a return. So if I own a business and I join my professional body or my industry body, it's an investment in the success of my business. If I am an accountant and I'm working in a practice and I join my professional body, it's an investment in the success of my career. If I am joining a sporting club, it might be an investment in a happy family or my health or a great lifestyle. You've got to figure out what is the value that people are seeking to extract from your organisation, because value has so much more impact than features. And just to give you an example, if I was to call an association and say, hi, I'm interested in membership, can you tell me what's in it for me? And someone was to take a deep breath, as they invariably do, and go, Oh, I'm interested. We've got a website, a newsletter, a magazine. We run events, workshops. You know what? I don't care about that stuff because every single association has a website, a magazine, a newsletter. Those things are features and they mean nothing and they have no inherent value in themselves. But on the other hand, if someone says to me, if I'm, say, taking my business to join somewhere, and they say, do you know, when you join our association, it's an investment in the success of your business. We're going to help you to increase your income, decrease your costs, and get a competitive advantage over people who aren't members. Would that be of interest to you? Well, heck yeah. Alrighty, well then let's talk about how we can do that. Now, when you talk about the how you can deliver on that value, here's the trick. Find out what your members are worried about. Whatever you do, don't send out a survey that says, what services would you like us to provide? Those things are useless in most cases. What I want to know when I'm talking to members is, what keeps you up at night? What are you concerned about in the next 3 years in this particular profession, industry, sport? If you know what their problems are, then you as an organisation can start finding the solutions to those problems. And this is particularly powerful because most people don't join for a million different services. In fact, those that have a huge quantity of services are often doing themselves a disservice because most members will generally join for 1 or 2 services and a couple of others are generally of interest. Now, we're going to talk about segmentation in just a moment because one of the challenges that you have is not every member wants the same mix of products and services, but we'll get to that. I actually wanted to just bring up one other thing as well. Content curation. The biggest competitor to almost every association in the Western world right now is Google. It's one company. Because how many associations have said for many years the biggest benefit of our membership is the fact that we provide you with information. Well, if I want information, I'll go to Google and get 17.6 million search results. But you know what? In that power that Google has is also its downfall. Because most people don't have the amount of time required to go through all those search results. And nowadays, time is more valuable than money. So associations who become good content curators, who actually sift through the information and appreciate the fact that many of their members are overwhelmed with the massive volume of information that inundates them each day, they can actually have a significant opportunity to generate significant value for their members. If you proactively collect information relevant to your members, filter it into smaller streams of timely, critical and considered information, and then direct that flow to the individuals who need it, you will give yourself something that is very hard for others to duplicate. Speaking of things that are hard for others to duplicate, this is probably one of the biggest changes that I've seen in associations over the past 20 years. Back when I started out in associations, it was very one-directional. Someone joined and the association kept them up to date with information. Occasionally the member might actually call and ask a question, but it was very, very one-directional. But what we're seeing now is that old-fashioned model of that transactional relationship with members is no longer sustainable. The successful associations are now facilitating communications not only between themselves and their members, but between their members. What they do is associations who are successful are now the facilitators of and enablers of communities and connect their ways. And I've popped it up here because, once again, something I really want to get through. They connect their ways, members in ways that provide them with meaningful, positive outcomes. So as an association, you're an instigator of conversations. You're not a provider of information. And why this is a critical takeaway is because there are competitors, both for-profit and not-for-profit, who will take parts of your business. Products and services and discounts can be copied in a heartbeat. But one of the hardest things for anyone to copy is community. To copy a community is immensely difficult. So if you have a powerful community, you are solidifying your position and ensuring your long-term sustainability and success. And community is so intangible. I know a lot of people are reluctant to invest in it, but there's a lot of tools available now that enable you to create communities. Things like this webinar, online social media tools used to facilitate offline communication, small group events. We'll talk a bit more events in a moment, but this is where we need to come, is how do we create these communities? Because membership is an emotional investment. It's not like buying a tube of toothpaste. People get emotionally involved with their association, so how can we strengthen that? And now, Sarah, I'm aware I've been talking for quite some time now. If there was any questions, I'd be happy to take a couple now.
There aren't any coming through as of yet, Belinda, but if anyone does have any, please feel free to type them into the messages box in the bottom left-hand corner. And Savio's just made a comment there that they're actually going to launch an online community for their members on their website to extend beyond the offline communities. So definitely agreeing with you there, Belinda.
Okay, and just if I can get people to pop into that box, what's your feeling on the content so far? Is this something that you can see as relevant to your associations? And I'm about to go, and I see, Peter, your comment there, I'm about to talk about segmentation. That's a big area for us. One of the other things as well, the advocacy one is one I get all the time. I'll make a note. Can I come back to the advocacy at the end, because that's a big one? Alrighty, excellent. And but it's quite. I need to get through the other elements to talk to that a bit more effectively. Now, the other thing with this is today, everyone, we are just doing, it's a very broad brush. Any one of these I could talk on a day for, because I suppose because it's my passion, and I immerse myself in this. So if there are areas where you see you'd like more information provided, I'm setting up a webinar schedule for next year of different topics that we can talk about. So just to make a note of that, and in this box here, and I'll actually go through and pick out where there might be topics for next year. Just looking at the advocacy there. Social media we can talk about in a moment. Change management. Okay, cool. Just getting the things we'll cover there at the end. Actually, and John, I see you put there, do you feel associations sell themselves and achievements and offerings well enough? Do you know what? One of the things that Australian and New Zealand associations do very badly is effectively communicate how valuable they are. Often their products and services, I'd say, I mean, I get heaps of people come to me talking about their issues all the time, about why they're having trouble with retention and recruitment. And in 95% of cases, it's a communication issue where they've not effectively communicated how valuable they are, rather than a mix of products and services. Now, I'm actually going to come to community building mistakes. I'll actually get to that when we talk about the social media, because there's a few things that come in there to, David, what you've seen in there. And how to instigate meaningful conversations. Okay. Alrighty, cool. Those questions, a lot of the questions that have come through, we're going to cover in what we're talking about at the moment. So what we'll do is I'm going to keep going forward, and then I'll come back to some of these questions that I've just noted down. And particularly, Amanda, your public or private community forums, I'm going to talk on that in social media in just a moment. But let's get into one of the questions that just came through about how do you get your members more involved in the community? And this is something that is critically important. Ad hoc volunteering, so those one-off volunteering opportunities, they're actually the critical segue between an uninvolved and involved member. In fact, one of my favourite quotes from the Decision to Join research is this: if a resigned member can be considered dead, then an inactive member should be considered comatose. Now, what this means is that if you get your members proactively engaged with you, you're more likely to have them renewed. Now, one of the problems is a lot of people consider, oh, well, engagement means coming to my events. No, it doesn't. Engagement is not what you perceive it to be, it's what the member perceives it to be, and some members perceive them reading the magazine when it comes through as being engaged with you. So you need to enable members to engage on their terms. Now, one of the things that you will find is a lot of associations lead with trying to get people involved on committees and boards. But if you look at the allegiance model of segmentation, which is a model that was developed in the 90s, I think it was, and it looked at the predisposition of people who are members of professional and industry associations to as to reasons why they joined. And one of the things that this research found, and has been supported through follow-up research projects, is only about 10% of the membership are ever going to be predisposed to be interested in being involved on committees or boards. So why would you lead with something that the majority of members aren't interested in doing? In fact, if you looked here, if I'm looking at a way to get someone engaged with my association, you've got to think about it as a process, because recruiting and retaining members is a lot like dating. And if I was to walk up to someone who has no idea who I am and say, so, how about it? You want to get married? They're going to turn and run a mile, and it's what our members do. Just because we're ready to sell a membership doesn't mean they're ready to buy. So we've got to have a way to ease them into it, to engage it. And that's what this continuum is. This is a sample that we used with one organisation in one particular segment. And we found that in the beginning, you want to find a low trust required, low time commitment required, low financial commitment required opportunity for someone to start to get to know you. And things like a free email bulletin. Someone gets that and then they'll come to a networking event, then they might join and they might come to a conference and then write a comment on a Facebook page. That's being engaged. Join a LinkedIn group, attend a workshop. There's all these different things, and each one steps up and up and up, and you'll see that the committee involvement is right at the end there. And I see, Emmanuel, you just said, should we replace our older board with a younger, more innovative one? No, because the baby boomers, the issue with a whole board made up of white men over the age of 50 is not that white men over the age of 50 don't have a heap to contribute. It's just that it doesn't, unless your association is entirely made up of that group, they're not representative. Your boards should be representative of the range of members that you've got, and we still need to appreciate the fact that the boomers are the ones who built our associations, and they still have an enormous amount to contribute, but we just need to be able to find a way to continue to gain that contribution while also drawing in the contributions and the thoughts and attitudes and preferences of the younger generation as well. And Becky, I just saw you said, what was that study called? It was the Allegiance one. And I will be very surprised, and I've just typed it into there, if you can find anything on it. If you make a note, I've got a summary paper I wrote on the Allegiance stuff when it first came out in the 90s, and I can grab that out because it's a great little summary that talks about the different groups. I'm happy to provide that to anyone who wants it. But one of the things that the decision to join research found was that when someone first joins an association, they're very much in what's in it for me. And it's only as they become a member over a period of time, their predisposition of the value of the association increases. And it's only over time that they become predisposed to be interested in advocacy. In fact, there's a lot of research that shows that people in the early stages of their membership and early stages of their career aren't very much predisposed to be interested in advocacy. And it's for this reason that effective segmentation is absolutely critical. And I see there's a lot of people there who want copies of that stuff, so I'll put it up into the resource section library afterwards. Copyright issues on website summaries. Links, depends on your country, but for the moment what we normally do is we put the first paragraph of whatever it is and link directly to the website where the information, where the copyright is. And that's okay because it's a directive link. It's not like if you're looking to reproduce it all, you need to contact and get copyright. And mentoring of your members, that's very good. And I may have a slide. I might have taken that out on that. Okay. Anyhow, let's jump into segmentation. Right. Segmentation, immensely important. But there's some common mistakes people make. First, generational segmentation. I've got them up there. Everyone can see what they are. You know that. But generational segmentation by itself can't work anymore because, first of all, the generational segmentation as we know it only applies to Australia, New Zealand, America, Canada, the UK. Because after that, the generational labels are put in there because it recognises the fact that in your formative years, the experiences that you have are going to very much set your mindset in the future. So with the baby boomers, they had the free love in the 60s. Now, bearing in mind, in China, in the 60s, you had the Cultural Revolution and Mao Zedong and masses of people dying and awful, horrible things happening. So you can't apply baby boomer characteristics to someone who grew up in China. And the increasing diversity within our association means that the generational segmentation is a useful indicator, predominantly, especially when the majority of your members are made up from people who were brought up within a Western culture. But it's most useful when it's actually integrated as part of a segmented approach. And you recognize the fact, and this actually was mentioned in a piece of research that came out in April, where you recognize the fact that people born of in a non-Western country will be predisposed to be less likely to engage with a membership association, and for that reason need to be segmented and dealt with in a different way to the masses of the membership. Now, I've got Christine, you put here, what are the value propositions for each group? Let me go to the next slide because that will help to clarify it, because I don't agree with segmenting purely on a generational basis because of diversity. It's just not going to be relevant anymore. There's a number of different ways that you can segment, but the most popular methods are a generational overlaid with a career life cycle for what we call first career professional associations. I'm going to work through a couple of slides here, so I'll just give you the background. A first career professional association is like engineers, architects, where someone goes to uni, studies, graduates, and tends to jump into their career and follows a fairly established career path. So something like the segmentation that you see on screen is very, very useful. Now, for those of you with business memberships and others, I'll come to you in a moment. But just to talk to this was an actual segmentation that we used with an association. And what we found is when we segmented their membership like this, those individuals who were mid-career and older had a phenomenally good retention rate. But the people who were from students up to career starter had a very, very poor retention rate. Now, previously, that state-based association had been the third largest out of all of its, all of the associations in Australia for that particular profession. Now, what they did is they did their membership statistics by each of these different segments, and they worked out, say, for example, Consolidator, it was 96% retention rate. Now, that means out of 100% of people who were members last year, 96% of them renewed. That is such a fantastic retention rate. I mean, benchmarks right now for professional bodies are about 89%. So in that segment, we said, just go out and recruit. This is a real opportunity. But then we looked at career starter, for example, and graduates, where the retention rates were low as 66%. Now, that scares the crap out of me, because when I see, for example, a 50% retention rate, that means that you have a 100% turnover of members every 2 years, complete replacement. That's unsustainable. So we said in those particular segments, stop your retention activities. It's hurting your organisation. Your recruitment activities. Let's focus on retention and try and figure out how we can plug that leaky hole in the bucket to ensure that people in those segments stay. Now, what's interesting about this is they didn't spend any more money on their membership marketing. They were able to rejig the resources that they had to do the pinpoint on the particular segments, giving them what they needed. And within 2 years, they were the first largest in Australia. So it goes to show that if you make decisions on data and you follow a segmented approach, it can really help you to conserve the resources that you have. But it's critical that you segment properly. Now, this segmentation is great for a first career professional body. Now, let's have a look here. If you've got business life cycle is the next most popular. Now, this is really good where you have businesses join, and for professional associations who might have practice members, for example, but also for industry bodies. Now, consider these two segments. Actually, I should go back here. They can be quite a lot similar to the students here and the viability pre-opening here. When someone's starting a career or when someone's about to open a business, their need is not just to be kept up to date with information. Their need is to have what happened in the past. How do I know what I've got to do? How can I be confident I'm making that critical right first step? How can I be brought up to date and then be kept up to date? How can you give me opportunities? Because particularly in a business life cycle, from viability through to growth, you're very much focused on survival. And it's only when people get to the end of the growth and build segment, consolidation, maintenance, that things like advocacy come higher up the priority list for them. So as an association, you need to figure out, well, what are our segments? Have we got segments that we're missing out on? If I'm an industry body and most of our members are from the consolidation and maintenance stage, therefore predisposed to be more interested in advocacy and strategic level issues, are we missing out on the opportunity to achieve to the new businesses and those in a growth and build cycle because we haven't equipped our association with the resources for that? And one of the ways that you can do this really easily is through your membership categories. Now, just to jump on my soapbox, I've got to say, I hate what I call counterintuitive membership categorization. That is people who have full member, associate member, affiliate member, standard member. Those are really insulting because when someone's looking through a list of membership options and they see full member, an associate member, an affiliate member, isn't there the inference that somehow a full member is better than an associate or an affiliate? Or that an affiliate it's not quite right for your association? Now consider instead if you were an industry body and your membership categories actually read new business or went by size of staff or something where you could immediately figure out what segment they fall into, have a very specific package of products and services that were deliberately geared towards people in those segments, priced appropriately. There's no inference that someone is better or worse than anyone else. You're simply getting the package of products and services that's right for you, and you can intuitively figure out where you sit. And now I know at this point a lot of people say, yeah, but our Constitution has got those words in there. Yeah, it might be in your Constitution, but just because it's in your Constitution doesn't mean that you need to give it that marketing label. How you market that constitutional category, you may have an affiliate member, but you may call it new business. And it might say that, you know, any new businesses are within our Constitution regarded as an affiliate member. So you can explain it through the data, but you can still use the intuitive categorization. Now, I know a few people have mentioned in there about younger members. You know, funny piece of research that came through. Actually, I see Robert. Yeah, agreed. There are some people you never want voting in your organisation, but that's cool because you've said that in your explanation. So you might have, so with an affiliate business, it might be so there might be a supplier, for example. So you might, I don't know your association, but say, for example, you're an industry, a profession, and then you've got suppliers who are members. That's okay. You may actually call the membership category a supplier category, and then you would say, in our Constitution, all people joining in the supplier category are affiliate members and do not have any voting rights. So you're not giving anything. You're just changing the marketing label. You're not actually giving away anything. Membership levels naming-wise, it really does depend on your association. If you're looking, and I don't know, I can't see, when people are asking questions, if you put the name of your association there, it kind of helps. With the membership types, it depends. So if you're looking at professional associations, some people choose to have practice members, and you might have a new practice, and then you might have people at different levels of qualification. If you've got an industry body, you may segment by numbers of staff, turnover, although turnover is not a real good one because most people lie about that and don't like to give the figures. There's a bit of research that's been done on different ways of setting membership categories and correlating them with membership fees. I could actually run a full-day session just on that. And when I send you the link to my book, there's a section on that which runs you through some ideas. But happy to do the one-on-one for those of you who stay behind afterwards if you can give you the kind of organisation that you're in. Looking through the questions, segmentation, requires registration for those who are not registered to call affiliates. It requires registration for those who are not registered or called affiliates. That's okay if they're called affiliates in your Constitution. But for example, if I was marketing, I'd probably call them non-registered practitioners. So they don't see, it's nothing, you're simply stating a fact and you're not using a term that has an adverse inference. That makes sense? According to the fellows, associate fellows, members, associates and affiliates, I see that question that's been put in there by Leanne. Once again, associates and affiliates, I'd often say there's got to be some better categorization for that because it's actually very powerful for you to change your terminology because you can then start to deliver packages of benefit services and rejig your fees to match the outcomes people are seeking and use categories that are intuitive for your prospective and existing members rather than just internal. But I'll move on from there. Happy to deal with more questions on that at the end of the session because I really want to get to this next bit, which is some very, very interesting research that came out of the UK and got reinforced through one in the US, where when they surveyed students and they said, what is the role of a professional association, the majority of them didn't know. And in fact, the single biggest answer was that they were for people who were already working in a career. So what that tells us, if we are trying to tap into that critical student market, We need to educate them on the role of associations and the relevance of the association for them specifically, and engage with them at their level and provide it with resources. Unfortunately, I've had people say to me, oh, we've got a Facebook page. A Facebook page that's got no resources thrown at it and no support behind it is worse than useless. When you're talking about proactively engaging with the Gen Ys, you've got to be able to prove your value, and by looking at things that are actually important to them. And I've just noticed I'm really running behind on time here too. So, okay, so I've just popped it up here. These are some of the services for students and new grads that, through the research we've seen coming through, as critical. If you can actually show them how you're going to assist them to get the critical first step in their career, educate them on their career paths, and help reassure them that they're making the right choices, you're already doing better than 90% of the other associations targeting this market. But just want to quickly fly through a couple of other things in here that I wanted to touch on today. How you communicate is as important as the message. It is critically important that your messages, if they're going to compete with the myriad of messages that are constantly inundating your members and potential members, you've got to look at more creative ways to get cut through. And this means integrating both traditional and new media tools, and rather than just using the new media to replace the traditional media. Classic example of that is direct mail. Direct mail used to be the biggest mechanism for acquiring new members because it's very simple, it's very scientific. It's got 5 elements. You've got your list, your copy, your format, your envelope, and your offer. You would tweak them, test them, you could go back and forth. When email came in, direct mail dropped off to almost nothing. I mean, think about it. When was the last time you got a really well-written letter personally addressed to you about you? But what we're seeing now is the research is showing a real resurgence in direct mail. Because no one's doing it, it's now a huge opportunity again. I mean, think about it. The ability to really connect with someone in a medium that so many people have run away from. Now, I'll give you communication. There are some horror stories that have come through, but just one example is one of the Master Builders Associations, and I won't mention which state, spent tens of thousands of dollars producing this beautiful new members guide. And they sent it out and got inundated with complaints because what they'd done is they'd used a stock photo of a builder standing on a roof from the US, and so they were getting called saying wrong tool belt, no safety harness, like everything about that photo was wrong. So in one fell swoop, they communicated to their members that we just don't get you. Okay, I just see Angeli has just put a question up about, does free student membership decrease engagement and perception of value? Really interesting. There was a study done in Melbourne where they trialled against 2 universities, one where membership was free and students could buy a guide for $20, and the other where membership was $20 and then they would get given the guide for free. Now, the retention rate from the paid membership was massive compared to the other group. That's because after paying the membership, they immediately had a positive experience to reinforce that decision to join. I would have liked to have seen what would have happened in a third university where membership was free and they were given a free guide, but they didn't test that particular element, which is disappointing. I do think with membership, there's some research that's just come out in the States. In fact, I've only been briefed on it. I haven't even got a copy of the hard copy yet, but it did talk about price being a primary determinant of membership and the weighting given to that as being extraordinarily heavy for people in the early parts of their career and the need to tier the pricing going up. I've seen some people have some success with free membership. My personal opinion, though, is a very, very small nominal fee because even the process of paying $5, you know that person's engaged. So why wouldn't you have a free subscription for students, but for people who want to pay the $5 membership fee, giving them a raft of other benefits, and through the payment of that fee, they've actually signaled to you that that person is already engaged, and you would treat that group very, very differently from the free group. So it comes back down to your subsegments there. So I just see, Kate, you're talking about trialling a renewal mail-out. Yes, renewal mail-outs are excellent. In fact, I could talk about renewals forever. There's been research, though, that's gone out that shows that multiple points of contact is more effective. You're actually better off integrating both electronic and direct mail renewals. So I'm happy to talk to you more about that after. But let's go here. I want to ask a question. Sarah, I'm throwing it to you.
Okay, here we go. We've got another poll. So this is in relation to your communications. So are your communications so useful and interesting that your members rush to open your emails and post before anything else? And if you've got any additional comments on this, please feel free to type them into the chat box in the bottom left-hand corner. And I will leave this poll open for a little longer this time so everyone can see. But just a quick note that we will be sending all the poll responses along with the recording email as well, so you can all take a look at that in your own time. And we can see quite an overwhelming response from mostly no, Belinda.
Yes, and you know what? That's not surprising because most association publications and communications are poorly segmented. And for every poorly segmented communication you send out, it reduces your open rate even on the good communications. So the trick is to make your communications as segmented as possible without going overboard. So and often most people go, oh, we can't add on a whole heap of new communications. And my response to that is, it's not about adding new communications, it's figuring out which ones not to send. So if you've got someone who's been a member for 22 years and never gone to an event, why would you send them the event information and the reminders about that event via email? I would remove them from those. Even better, give people the opportunity to select what communications they want. So do they want event communications? Do they want updates, like a content curated updates on a daily basis? But here, in fact, we'll close this poll. We'll go to the next one because there's a point I want to make, but the next poll will actually help us with this. So, Sarah, we might just go, I'm going to ask the question, how many emails is too many?
Right, and you've got a few responses there? And this is on a monthly basis, Belinda, correct?
This is on a monthly basis. So how many is too many to send to a member a month? One. So, now, I see, Sarah, I'm actually getting close to time, and I've got a few more slides here. There is a couple of, I'll just cut out a couple of those, but we'll aim to wrap up at 12. Is that okay?
Yeah, and I think once we've completed the presentation, if you're fine and if anyone else is fine, to stay online for another 5 to 10 minutes to answer any additional questions that people might have. Would you be okay with that?
Most definitely. But I'm just going to quickly go through here. I can see, let me give you a quick story on just how many emails is too many. There's an association, a national one in Australia, and they had a new comms person started, and she noticed that on top of the normal events, communications, and e-newses that were going out, there was an email going out every single day to their members. It went through and listed all the tenders in their industry, and she was appalled. And what she did was she knew it was absolutely horrible that they were sending something out every day, so she thought she'd consolidate it to a weekly digest, didn't bother talking to anybody, she just figured she'd just send it all out on the Friday. This email normally went out at 9:30 in the morning. By 10:30, the association's phones were ringing off the hook. The email with all the tenders for the water industry, as far as the members were concerned, this could have gone out twice a day, and they would have been ecstatic because every time they got that email, they knew it was an opportunity for business. And that goes to show the correlation of value is enormous with your emails. So if your emails are valuable, often people won't mind how often they're coming out if they're truly generating that value. So the question to ask when you're looking at your communications is the person I'm sending this to going to find this communication of value, or do I need to not send it to them? Now, just close that poll now. So this is one of the things that we really need to consider. Now, I'm not going to spend any more time on that because I've got a couple of things I just want to touch on really quickly. First of all, social media, too popular and too powerful to be ignored. But you know what? Very few associations are having anything more than moderate success, and those that are investing staff and financial resources behind it. If you're going to make social media work, it's critical that you have a purpose. Why are you using it? Because we've found, for example, that public social networks have no positive effect on member recruitment and retention. Successful private social networks do. So if you're using public social networks, why? What is the purpose? What is your plan? How is it integrated with your traditional media activities so that you can leverage off the different content that you've got in both spaces? And finally, how are you measuring whether you're successful in achieving your purpose? Now, I know it's at this point someone goes, yeah, but what if someone says something bad about us on social media? Say thank you. Because if someone's going to say something bad about you, they would probably have said that if you didn't have a forum or a presence, when you didn't know about it. At least this way you get to be part of the conversation. And better yet, you or a member, can jump in and defend your position and set things straight if there's misapprehensions having happened. And in fact, if you are looking at getting your online networks up and running and your social media appropriately dealt with, I would highly recommend, if you're looking at ways to engage with members, appoint a good 10 to 20 members whose only job it is to comment or post in your online communities. And the other thing is, if you're concerned about bad social media, phone, don't put this in an email, but phone and talk to a couple of members and say, look, if something said bad about us, do you mind if I give you a call and you can come in and defend our position so it's coming from a member and not an association. There's ways that you can manage your social media, and if you're going to jump into that space, it's important that you invest the time and resources to planning how you're going to do it so it's going to be done right. Now, great events. Once again, could talk for ages. The Rotary example is a classic one of this. You really need to review your events, venues, formats, frequency, duration, content, engagement mechanisms, everything, to see that they're still going to be relevant for people, because we're seeing that younger members like different events. They want smaller group events. They want money can't buy experiences. They like an interesting, convenient and practical venue, and they like it to be fun. I mean, for those of you who know, I'm also the Executive Officer of the Australasian Society of Association Executives, and those of you who aren't a member, I strongly advise that you join. We're trialling a few things this year. One of the things that we're doing is we've got rid of our trade exhibition. And instead of the trade exhibition, we're actually putting in fun things for people to do. We're putting in a conversations cafe so delegates can talk. And we're looking at other booths and things like that where people come and actually experience rather than feel that they're being sold to. And do we have sponsors there? Yeah, we have our annual partners. But we don't have very many of them. And this is where we're looking at how do you rejig your events to create a fun experience where people can truly connect with each other. One of the things that you'll see is on the name badges, underneath the name, people will have a note on the top 3 things people are interested in personally. So you might have someone there with like World of Warcraft and guinea pigs, and you might be into that too. So off you go. You know you can immediately start breaking down those barriers and get beyond the how is the weather conversation. Because with events, it really is in the details that you have success. And it's really important that you make those right. And sorry, and I'm looking at my time here going, damn, so much I'd love to say. Okay, really, really quick story though, because this is a really good one. A friend of mine sat on the board of an association here in Queensland, and another friend of mine, due to my friendship with the board member, I introduced as a member to their association. They had their AGM dinner, and both of them attended. I caught up with a friend of mine who sits on the board, and a couple of days later I said, how was it? She said, oh, fantastic, played a joke on the executive director. She just raved about it so much I felt like I should have been there. About a month later I caught up with a friend of mine I'd introduced as a member. I said, how was it? She said, it was awful. I hate them. I hate them all, and I will not be renewing my membership. And I was shocked because I know the board there, and they're brilliant, lovely people. And I said, what happened? And she said, no one spoke to me. It was all in jokes. They were all cliquey. There was only one other new member. They sat us together, and he wouldn't stop hitting on me. I felt so uncomfortable. No one saved me, and so I left before dessert. And this is the challenge. When you run events, imagine the difference that having one person nominated as a new member welcome ambassador, whose only job was to make sure the new members had a good time and got filled in on the backstories. It really comes down to looking at the detail of how your events run for them to be successful, particularly when you're looking at getting younger members involved. But the other thing with younger members too, think about your fee structures. It's really important because the research shows that the cost is a huge impact, and it could be providing a barrier for you to engaging those younger ones. I'm not going to go too much into this. I just want to bring up here new technology. It's critical to keep on top of it as a way to streamline your service delivery, decrease your costs, increase responsiveness. Huge opportunities here. This is a model for recruiting and retaining members. I won't go through it now. It's a six-step model, but I will give you the link for the book where you can download all of that information. It's really useful because if you can get each of these steps working, it will make your member recruitment and retention much more powerful. One of the things I want to put in here is the membership department is not the whole organisation, but the whole organisation is the membership department. The people who will be, organisations who are most successful are ones where the whole organisation is geared. Decisions must be made on data. These are the stats you need to know. And here's a little sample here of the retention rate. Loss rate and lifetime value. One of the things you should be monitoring is your average tenure and average lifetime value, because then you can work out what you're investing into your recruitment and retention processes. look, the very last point I want to make here is the biggest challenge that is facing almost every association is this. It's our wonderful baby boomers who we love, but so many of them are resistant to making the changes required. And there's three reasons. I mean, a lot of them are uncomfortable with the fast, ad hoc, largely unregulated communication media. They don't like to adopt initiatives that don't appeal to them personally. And this isn't all of them, it's just a few, but those people can stonewall. And they don't want to give up the control that they've worked so hard all their lives to attain. So when you are getting boards and you're putting proposals up for boards on how you can start to change your organisation, provide them with data and information. And if you're really having a difficult time, call me and see if I can come in and present to your board, because I spent half my life doing it, because they're on a journey too, and you've got to appreciate and take them on that journey to get them as part of the process for you to make the changes that are necessary for your organisation to be successful. And look, I've covered a lot of things there, and you've pretty much seen a full-day presentation highlights reel. There's the link at the top there has the free resources page, including where you can download a full copy of my book, Membership Fundamentals, which has that paper in there. The Sue Froggatt, who is an amazing membership person from the UK, is coming over to Australia in November. I highly recommend coming. She's going to see her because she's actually done a lot of the benchmark research, and that incorporated a lot of Australian and New Zealand data. I'll be running some workshops next year. As I say, if you want me to present, give me a call. But most importantly, for any of you that aren't a member of the Australasian Society of Association Executives, I really recommend you join. It's the peak non-profit organisation representing individuals who work in associations, and our job's to make you as successful as possible in your career. So if you work in an association, you should be a member, and even more importantly, I'm working on my next book at the moment, and every member is going to get a free copy in early 2014 when it's finished. But Sarah, look, thank you so much for having me here today. It's been really great, and I look forward to hearing how everyone goes and answering any questions anyone has.
Excellent. Thank you, Belinda. On behalf of Redback Conferencing, I'd like to thank you for joining today and presenting a very, very inspiring webinar. And thank you, everyone, for joining us today. A huge attendance rate, and we're very grateful for that. And also all your interaction and questions that have come through. So please feel free to complete the exit survey on the way out, which you will now be redirected to, and let us know if you have any other questions for Belinda regarding the associations that she operates or regarding anything that we've spoken about today. And also let us know personally if you are interested in running webinars for your membership base as well. We'll be happy to help and take you through how everything works. So enjoy the rest of your day, everybody, and thanks once again for being part of it.